Today we're looking at the common types of lures used for ice fishing, how they work underwater, and when to use them. Let's talk about a classic ice fishing lure first, the gliding minnow bait like a Rapala Jigging Rap or an Acme Hyperglide. These baits have horizontal wings that allow the bait to glide forward and cover more water than just what's directly under the hole. If you bounce these baits at a constant pace, the lure will dance around in a big circle and cover a lot of water. Lowering them slowly actually prevents them from gliding, so you want to let them fall on slack line to cover the most area. The Hyperglide minnow is a really neat lure with these little wings that pop out when it's falling, and they slap back against the body when it's jerked back up. The higher you pop this up, the farther it'll glide away from the hole. This is one of my favorite baits to use for trout. Then we have jigging spoons like Castmasters, buckshot spoons, blue fox minnows, little Cleos, and lots of others. These baits are heavy and they work best when twitched near the bottom. They do work on their own, but most people tip them with a minnow head or plastic minnow head, and it can be helpful to bang the bottom once in a while to make a little commotion and stir things up. If you're fishing for panfish, it's hard to beat a small tungsten jig with a waxworm or small plastic bait. I use gulp waxworms and minnows a lot, and even small plastic crayfish. Bounce these up and down and leave them still or slowly lift them to entice a bite. A tube jig is a popular bait in the open water season, but is also killer under the ice for trout and crappies. These are great worked in a wide circle by just using a constant twitch, and if a fish comes in, you can slow it down and dance it right in front of them. If the fish are aggressive, they may come out of nowhere and slam it while you're bouncing the jig. If they're not aggressive, they may wait for it to slow down or just stare at it for a while. One of the most important things in ice fishing is to not be afraid to switch lures. If a fish sits and stares at your bait for minutes, it's waiting for you to do something different with that bait or offer it something else entirely. This pike sat and watched my tube jig for over 5 minutes. It didn't like what I did no matter what I tried, so I switched to a larger, noisier bait, and then this happened. Rattling baits like this rattle trap or this rip and wrap are aggressive, full of rattles, and shaped like a panfish. There are lots of small bluegills under the ice, especially near large beds of vegetation, so it can be smart to imitate this type of prey. The intense vibrations from a rattle bait are good at pulling fish in from a long distance away. Jerk it up about a foot, let it sink back down, and jerk it up again. This activates the rattles and causes the belly and sides of the lure to flash. If a fish comes in slowly and doesn't appear to be interested in this action, you can slow it down, offer a different bait, or put down a dead stick with a minnow. A dead stick is just a jigging rod that's sitting still while you're actively working another bait in a different hole. When you attract a fish in, the dead stick gives you a very subtle presentation next to your more active lure, so the fish has a choice between either bait. This gives you the best chance of catching that fish. I like to use a rattling bait to pull fish in and then twitch the dead stick a few times to make sure the fish sees it. A jig and a soft plastic insect or minnow can also be deadly for fish that don't want to commit. This bass was unwilling to bite a spoon with or without a minnow head, so I switched to a jig and a plastic mayfly and twitched it just above the bottom structure. You can see that the result was much better. A soft plastic minnow can be used to create an irresistible bait for finicky crappies, bass, and walleyes. Work these baits just like you'd work a drop shot minnow in the summertime. You just gently shake the rod tip to flick the minnow tail around and create a lot of action while not really moving the whole bait much at all. This works best with minnows that have a very slender tail. Another soft plastic bait that works great in cold water and through the ice is a Wacky rig stick bait like a Senko or a robo-worm. Really, anything that works well in cold water and can be worked vertically tends to be effective through the ice too. If you have other favorite ice fishing baits, drop a comment and let us know. Good luck and be safe on the ice. We'll catch you next time.